Tihe mori ora. Ana mana, ana reo, e nā karangatanga maha tēnā koutou. E a kūrangatira, ki a tātou e tone ka nui tako mihi. Pa huti mai ki te tātou hui whakanui. Ka nui te honore ki te mi ki a koutou, no reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. A very warm welcome to everyone. I'm Jennifer Windsor, Acting Vice-Chancellor of Te Herenga Waka, Victoria, University of Wellington. Now, there are moments that are worth pausing and reflecting on, and today is one of them, to celebrate 50 years of New Zealand and Chilean embassies in each other's capitals. This kind of moment means it's important to name and acknowledge the people and organizations who have contributed to the history and the shared future. And so it's my privilege to hold your attention for just a few minutes to do exactly that, to name and recognize the people. Thank you to the Minister of Education, the Honourable Chris Hipkins, for hosting today's event. A warm welcome also to the Ambassador of Brazil, His Excellency Marcos Abizo de Sousa Campos, Ambassador of Cuba, His Excellency Edgardo Valdez Lopez, Mayor of Wellington City, Andy Foster, former Prime Minister and United Nations Development Programme Administrator, the Right Honourable Helen Clark, former Attorney General, Minister for Treaty of Waitangi negotiations, and Minister for the Arts, Culture and Heritage, the Honourable Chris Finlayson, Dr. Alan Bollard, Chair of the Centres of Asia-Pacific Excellence, or CAPES Advisory Board, and former Reserve Bank Governor and APEC Secretariat General. Grant McPherson, the Chief Executive of Education New Zealand, and James Dixon, Chair of the Latin American New Zealand Business Council, and also Pierre MacArthur, whose husband John MacArthur was the first ambassador in Santiago from 1973 to 1975. I'm not quite done yet. We have a great group. So we also have with us former New Zealand ambassadors to Chile and other diplomats, members of the Chilean community in New Zealand, students and alumni of CAPE programs from multiple universities, recipients of the Prime Minister's Scholarship from Latin America, teachers, representatives from the Ministry of Education, Tertiary Education Commission, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Ministry for Pacific Peoples, and Universities New Zealand. Academics from every New Zealand university are in today's program, joining us online or in person. Ngā mihi nui, thank you to everyone. We are absolutely the place to be today. Our university is a dedicated supporter of the CAPES. We've hosted the Latin America and Southeast Asian CAPES since their creation in 2017 with our consortium partner universities of Waikato and Otago, and with the North Asia CAPE hosted by the University of Auckland. All four universities are key contributors, and you'll hear during the day how this collaborative approach has benefited all. And my thanks to the CAPES management team, and we have with us here today Deputy Vice-Chancellors Blair McRae and Eric Lithlander. We're really fortunate to have an excellent group of speakers, and it's my pleasure now to just give you one more name, Dr. Matthew Omar, Director of the Latin American CAPE, to speak about today's activities. Kia ora rau atu, ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa.
Kia ora tātou, ko Matthew Omar o, ki roto o I te Latin America CAPE, hei Director o, nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you, Professor Windsor, for welcoming us to today's mini-summit, marking 50 years since the opening of a New Zealand embassy in Santiago and a Chilean embassy in Wellington. May I add my own greetings to all of you who have honoured us with your presence this afternoon. Bienvenidos a todos. As your MC for the event, I need to have the task of reading out the safety instructions. They're not exciting, but they could save your life. So please listen. Should the fire alarm sound, please evacuate the venue via the same route you entered or the nearest safe exit. Follow the directions of security staff and fire wardens. The evacuation assembly point is at the rear of Parliament. In the event of a medical emergency, please refrain from calling 111, but rather inform security or venue staff immediately, and security will manage any medical emergency within the parliamentary complex. In the event of an earthquake, you know what to do. Drop, cover and hold until it stops. Keep away from windows and other obvious hazards in the venue, and please remain inside and await instructions from security staff. Please do what I haven't done, it fell off, and keep your visitor sticker on you. Toilet facilities, bathroom facilities are located downstairs. No smoking on the premises. Please switch your mobile phone to silent if you haven't done so already. You can take photos in this room, but not beyond. But speaking of photos, you can see we are recording the event, and so we will be taking photos throughout the day as well. Today's event is the second of two events honouring the milestone of 50 years of Embassies. Last Friday, the Latin American New Zealand Business Council commemorated 50 years of trade and business ties with a rich breakfast dialogue between Trade and Export Growth Minister Damien O'Connor and former Prime Minister Helen Clark. That exchange highlighted New Zealand's need to shift its trade from volume to values. Over the next 4.5 hours, and with the support of the Business Council and Education New Zealand, our focus will turn to the education, government and people-to-people aspects of the relationship. As you'll see from the program you have all received and have in your hands, we've got some great speakers lined up to explore 4 topics. We start with government initiatives and then talk about research connections. Then we move to more of a community level and talk about educational exchanges and the experience of Chileans in New Zealand. At the end of the proceedings, there will be songs from a daughter of Chilean immigrants to Aotearoa. On either side of the afternoon tea break too, we're going to showcase 2 projects produced by our Cape. One is a data visualisation tool which shows in a beautiful new way the connections between New Zealand and Latin America. The other is an original music composition created by young composers in the room today. But I mentioned the Capes. Some of you may not know yet the Capes, most of you do. But for those who don't, I'll briefly say who they are. We could go to the next slide, please. The Capes were founded in 2017 to help New Zealanders engage and do business with 3 Asia-Pacific regions: North Asia, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. As the Vice-Chancellor said, 2 of the Capes are based over the road at Victoria University of Wellington, the other in Auckland, and all are backed by the consortium of universities you see here. Funded by the Tertiary Education Commission, the Capes transfer academic knowledge to specific audiences they have been asked to reach. Those audiences range from businesses all the way through to primary school kids, so it's quite a diverse group. But you can think of us all as examples of the third mission of universities. How universities seek to leave positive impacts on society beyond classroom teaching and academic publications. As our second panel today will show, we share the expertise of academics not just in the 4 consortium universities, but every New Zealand university and beyond. Also, our program for students are open to students at every New Zealand university, and some have attracted Polytech students as well. Significantly too, we work with other stakeholders to deliver on our mandate, and those stakeholders include government agencies. As we grow sustainable relationships with Latin America, for example, we engage frequently with MFAT's posts in the region. For this reason, therefore, we asked New Zealand's ambassador to Chile, Her Excellency Linda Puni, if she would be willing to greet you today as well. Now, she didn't fly over for it, but she did accept our invitation, and here are her words of welcome.
Kia ora, ngāhi mihi nui ki a koutou. Buenos dias a todos y a todas. I orana, mari mari. It's a pleasure to be here today to share a few words with you at the start of this very important seminar celebrating 50 years since the establishment of embassies in respective capitals in Wellington and in Santiago, Chile. And of course our diplomatic relationship dates back much further, some 77 years. And education has always been a very important part of our relationship with Chile, which is of course one of our most important partners in the Latin American region. We were very fortunate to have the visit of Minister Hipkins in June this year. That was an important signal also of the strength of our relationship, that after the pandemic, the first visit of a minister here was the Minister of Education. That speaks to the strength of that engagement. We've also had the privilege of the visit of the Honourable Speaker of Parliament, Adrian Ururafe, and his delegation the past few days in Chile. And what I can say is that education has featured throughout those discussions, both with the Speaker's delegation visit and during Minister Hipkins' visit. It's an integral part of what we share together. And of course, from a people-to-people perspective, I couldn't not speak to the very important historical and whanaunga relationship with our whānau in Rapa Nui. And education is again something that's highly valued in terms of how Rapa Nui would like to see that engagement grow with Aotearoa New Zealand. So I look forward to hearing about the exchanges today. I wish you a great engagement throughout the seminar, and we look forward to strengthening and growing our relationship with Chile even further. Kia ora, gracias.
Very soon we're going to see how accurate the Ambassador's comments about the importance of education to bilateral relations are. But as many of you know, especially if you're from Latin America or if you just simply have engaged with the region, successful relationships with Latin America need to be reciprocal. And so for that reason, we also invited the Ambassador of Chile to New Zealand, His Excellency Ignacio Llanos, to make some remarks to you to honour bilateral relations and the anniversary we're celebrating. Unfortunately, the Ambassador is unwell, so he cannot be with us today, but also he signalled his support for this gathering by sending us a video to share with you.
Kia ora. Dear Minister Hipkins, dear colleagues, distinguished guests. We celebrate this year the 50th anniversary of the opening of embassies of New Zealand and Chile. No doubt, this move was a momentous decision that had a decisive impact on our relations. Chile and New Zealand established diplomatic relations some decades before, in 1945, during the San Francisco Conference, which established the United Nations. This event took place at the start of the post-world era, when the pillars of the international order were being established. It is difficult to imagine a better place and time to establish diplomatic relations than the San Francisco Conference, thus foretelling the extraordinary journey that both countries were going to undertake in the following decades. The establishment of diplomatic relations between our countries was a somehow bold move, considering the distance separating us, but visionary as well, when the Pacific Ocean has become a space for cooperation of a strong community of countries. Chile and New Zealand are like-minded countries, countries that share values and principles, such as strong multilateralism with the UN Charter at its center, the promotion of human rights, and a rules-based trading system, to name but a few. Cooperation between our countries has not ceased to grow. One example is the Working Holiday Program, which is one of the most important practical tools for young Chileans to get to know New Zealand. Bilateral cooperation in the areas of education has recently been updated through a bilateral arrangement concluded at ministerial level. Dear friends, to celebrate this anniversary, the Chilean Embassy, together with Massey University, have published a book with poems for younger readers, written by Gabriela Mistral, the Chilean poet who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1945. The poems are published in English, Spanish, and for the first time ever in Te Reo Maori. Gabriela Mistral, who was also a teacher, was very aware of the power of education. She once wrote that teaching should be done on the schoolyard, on the streets, as well as in the classroom. Let me conclude by saying that this commemoration should serve as an open invitation to strengthen our relation further and to bring them to new areas. I thank you.
From these two ambassadorial videos, I think you will have already received some insights about the significance of the anniversary and of bilateral educational relations. To understand our government's latest thoughts on how New Zealand and Chile interact in this space, however, it is time you heard from our host and keynote speaker, the Minister of Education. Introducing him will be Grant McPherson, the Chief Executive of Education New Zealand. Grant, I invite you to the podium.